Hello and welcome to the Confidence Inspection 101 training. This training is really foundational to Driven Auto Care's process on every car that comes through our shop. And so I hope you pay attention and retain this information and employ it immediately as you are performing or reviewing confidence inspections. Let's get into it. I've got my slides here. We branded our digital multi-point inspections, our DVIs, our MPIs, whatever you want to call them. We branded them. We call them confidence inspections. Isn't that kind of corny? Isn't that like a little kind of shady, scammy sounding? Well, I don't really think so, and here's why. We have signs in all of our shops that talk about the confidence inspection, and in those signs, we talk about all the different things that we are helping our customers with. And we also make it really clear right up front, we're not just out here hunting for additional dollars from our customers. If we, as the professionals, are not taking ownership of a vehicle's safety and reliability when it leaves our shop, who is? Is a customer supposed to kind of guess what their car needs and advocate for that when they drop their car off? Or is it up to us to tell them what their car needs? That's what we are here to do as professionals, and that is what we aim to accomplish in the confidence inspection. We call it a confidence inspection because of an experience that I had before I owned Driven Auto Care. I used to have a diesel truck. I had an F-250 that I put 40,000 miles on in 2.5 years, towing track cars to racetracks all over California and the rest of the West Coast. I went all the way out to Montana with that truck to get a classic car that my great-grandma left me when she passed. That truck was my workhorse and I depended on it all the time. I bought it with 90,000 miles on it and I sold it with 135,000 miles on it, which means I went through a lot of oil changes. I religiously did my oil changes every 5,000 miles. And I would go to a shop close to my house that said they worked on diesels, and I would take it there and drop it off in the morning. And I would drop it off and say, I'm here for my oil change and let me know what else it needs. Or, make sure the brakes are good. Or, I feel like there's a vibration in my tires because my tires were actually separating internally on the tread. And I took it in, they would do a tire rotation, set tire pressure, change my oil, charge me $145 for a diesel, and send me out the door. And never once did they try to sell me anything else over the course of 25,000 miles and 5 oil changes with them. That stressed me out as a customer. I drove this thing everywhere. I depended on it a lot. I took it on tons of long drives. This thing was absolutely must be dependable. I towed very valuable vehicles with it for my customers in my last shop. This thing mattered. And I drove it 25,000 miles and I took it into a shop every 5,000 miles and never once did they tell me it needed anything. Now, I kind of don't believe that. At the very least, I had maintenance that would be due at that mileage interval. They didn't try to sell me it. The only time I did any additional services was when the truck told me it needed a fuel filter and a coolant service. So they performed that for me because I asked for it. Is that really what we want as our experience? I would pick up my truck with no confidence that that shop knew what they were doing or in my truck. Not to say it wasn't performing as it should, but I figure over 25,000 miles of hard driving, wear and tear would happen between a 90 and 115 to 135,000 miles. That's not a brand new truck. They didn't try to sell me anything. That's what the confidence inspection is all about. I want customers in our shops who appreciate that we, as the professionals, take ownership of their vehicle's safety and reliability. So we have these signs. We have blurbs on our website. And we tell customers when they drop their car off, hey, every car that comes through here goes through this inspection. We have some customers that say, no, I don't want that. To them, I say, we're doing it anyways. I don't care. I will tell you if there are things on your vehicle that are unsafe. That's just how it is. Why do we push this so much? Why do we make the confidence inspection such a huge component of what we do? Every shop does a digital multi-point inspection, right? Well, the short answer is we do it better. We do it more. And this training is designed to help us accomplish that. So let's get into it. How is our confidence inspection better than other shops? Our inspection is free. Some people charge an hour for their inspections. We use it to educate first and sell second. Yeah, we're in business. We're going to try to sell you stuff. This is how we do it. But we want you to know about your car first. If you leave without buying anything, but you are educated about the condition of your car, I will be happy. As the owner of the business, we're investing that time. That is okay with me. If we just churned out free confidence inspections all day long and people left educated, eventually they will come back and buy. I don't expect us to give away free inspections forever. We use it to help deliver value to our customers no matter what. It's our brand promise. You drive with confidence, so we deliver on that by performing a confidence inspection. We use software that makes it really easy to perform the confidence inspection. We want it to be efficient for you. And we train our managers and advisors and our technicians to, as you will see later in this video, make it easy to understand these inspections. We don't want this to be hieroglyphs to our customers. We want to show them and educate them on what it is that's actually going on with their vehicle and the implications of that so that they can decide what to do. Our approach with anything we do in automotive service is rigorous honesty. That is our ethical standard. We will be honest even when it is detrimental to us. If we break something, we will tell the customer, we will take ownership of it. That is the way we do things. And if you are caught doing anything different, you won't work here much longer. That's just how that goes. So what is the confidence inspection? It shows up in Shopware as a service that appears on every single repair order, whether you like it or not, it'll be there. And the only exception to performing a confidence inspection on a vehicle is if it was here in the last 500 to 1,000 miles, and this is a recent visitor where they haven't driven it very much, we don't expect much to have changed since our last confidence inspection, we won't invest all the time into performing the entire confidence inspection again. We do perform the recent visitor re-inspection so that we can make sure that we are still validating that this vehicle is safe to be on the roads. We'll check tires, we'll check fluids, we'll check dashboard warning lights, we'll go on a quick test drive if it makes sense to do so. That's all we really need to do. This inspection has been meticulously designed and ordered to be both efficient and comprehensive so that our customers can leave feeling safe and reliable in their vehicles. We do also use it to generate additional recommendations that we can then sell to customers. I'm not going to hide from that. This is legitimately why we're in business. Customers cannot advocate for everything that their vehicle needs because they're not aware of it. They don't have a lift. They don't know what they're looking at under there. That's what we're here for. We want customers that value our recommendations and education. Okay, on a general basis, here are the standards for our confidence inspection. It's a traffic light system, as I'm sure you're familiar with. So we have green, yellow, and red ratings for each of the inspection items that you go through. Green means it's safe. There's nothing necessarily to do right now. Yellow means it's something to be aware of. It's not an immediately urgent need, but it is something you will need, and it is degraded, or there's some wear or something imminently that you should be concerned about for a future visit. And red means you need to do this now. This is bad enough that it's unsafe, it presents a reliability hazard, or a risk of additional damage on a customer vehicle, meaning a power steering pump is leaking. Maybe that they could get away with it, but if they run out of power steering fluid, they could damage the entire rest of the system. That's something we want to avoid, so we recommend immediate repair. Other standards. We include photos in our inspections, whether the components are in good condition or not. So this means for most line items on the confidence inspection, we want at least 1 to 5, depending on the component photo. This helps us educate and build trust and transparency with our customers. If a service advisor is going over an inspection with a customer, we want them to see how much effort we put into inspecting their vehicle, and we want to be able to show them in a situation where we're showing them a situation or a condition of a component that is good, we want them to see what that looks like as well. This is not supposed to be a major time commitment. You know, I don't want you to spend an hour digging through a customer vehicle to figure out everything that's wrong, but we employ good technicians who can quickly identify problems and recommend solutions, who know how to type quickly, who know how to use technology in a way where you can be efficient with these processes. We also want to be open to feedback. If you think there is a better way to do these confidence inspections, let us know. We can streamline the process. We'll add in tools. We'll add in tricks. We'll add technology. We will figure out ways to make the confidence inspection go smoother for you. Okay, so here's what it is. Here's what you go through in a confidence inspection. Before you get in the car, we want to take 4 corner pictures to document any damage that the customer has on their vehicle. We do this to protect both us and our customers from any sort of dispute over damage that may or may not have been caused to the body or interior of a vehicle when it is in our possession at Driven Auto Care. We don't want people saying, hey, that dent wasn't there before I dropped the car off. This is designed to happen in the parking lot before you ever get in the car. We want these photos before you get in the car. We just want 4 corners. You don't need to go around the car taking every little detailed photo. 1 from each corner, and then 1 photo looking into the driver's seat area from the outside. So we want to be able to see this dash, the steering wheel, the center console, the seat, the shifter, that kind of stuff, so that, you know, in case they accuse us of stabbing the seat leather with a pocket knife or whatever, we can say, nope, that tear was already there in the seat. There it is. Or the handprints on the steering wheel is another common one that we want to avoid. I'll come back to the around the block test drive. Before you leave on that test drive, you can fill out all the other items on this slide here. You can check warning indicators on the dash as well as the mileage. So this is where we're verifying the mileage in on the vehicle. You'll take a picture of the odometer as well as any other dashboard warning lights that are up and mark it accordingly by color. You can check the heat and AC, the dome lights, the radio function, backup camera, 360 camera, bird's eye camera, if those are present. You can't do necessarily things like blind spot monitors, forward collision warning, things like that. That's okay. We will find ways as ADAS systems become more prevalent in cars and fail more prevalently as these cars get older to be able to diagnose these issues in our confidence inspections. But for now, we do the basics that we can do from a stopped position in a parking lot. You'll want to roll down and roll up all the windows unless a customer has told us explicitly not to, and check whether the horn works. That's easy stuff to do before you ever move the car as well. You can operate the washer fluid, the wipers, things like that, both front and rear. Note any streaking, anything like that. There's minor streaking, there's major streaking. This will come back in the quality control section. We'll talk more about this, but this is one where, you know, if a window doesn't work, if a wiper doesn't work or a washer fluid doesn't work, we want to be careful how we document these issues. So just take a step back. If heat and AC don't work, it's likely that the vehicle is there for that complaint. Maybe not, but we need to be able to make sure that if a customer forgot that their AC didn't work, that we can help them out and offer, hey, do you want to diagnose why your AC is not working? We have a service for that. We can replace bulbs in your dome light. We can figure out why your speakers aren't working. We can fix your backup camera, things like that. With windows, if a window doesn't work, we may want to request diagnostic time right away. But one thing that you can do very quickly if a window is not working is check if that window does work from the switch at that door. So let's say it's a passenger rear window. If it doesn't work from the master switch, but it does work from the passenger rear switch, then we may have a master switch issue rather than a window regulator issue. And so we don't necessarily need to request as much diagnostic time for that issue. So that's important to note. With washer fluid, if the washer fluid doesn't work, it could be empty. If you mention in your notes that the washer is not working, please note whether the washer fluid reservoir is full or not. That's crucial to make sure that When you're in the car in the parking lot, you may not have observed the washer fluid reservoir. If there's no light on the dash, that isn't necessarily going to tell you the answer, but make sure that when you're going through the rest of the inspection, come back to this one and say wiper fluid reservoir is full or not. Topped up washer fluid reservoir and now wiper washer fluid works. Things like that. That'll help get through any confusion you have with your manager there. Exterior lights, headlights, taillights, license plate illumination, turn signals, parking lights, side marker lights, third brake lights, all that kind of stuff. You want to make sure that it works. If not, something that has caught us up in the past that you can quickly help with is, are these LED headlight assemblies, or is this a quick bulb R&R? That's obviously a huge difference in price. So you want to be careful with recommending a bulb versus a headlight assembly when you're going through these things. We also may have a wiring issue or some sort of other control issue to diagnose, but we usually in those kind of cases would want to start with a bulb replacement because it's very easy to do those before we go into any sort of further diagnosis. Okay, moving on to the road test. Number one thing here to acknowledge, we don't road test every car. Why do I say that? There are certain situations where it would be unsafe for us to road test. Things like the vehicle doesn't have seat belts. That's actually a new one that came up for us. We don't need to put you in danger. So if the vehicle doesn't have a seat belt, you do not need to road test it. On undrivable vehicles, vehicles without power steering, vehicles with flat tires, vehicles with suspension damage, vehicles that got towed in, vehicles that don't start, obviously. Things like that, we want to avoid test driving. Overheating issues as well. We don't want to test drive those. This around the block test drive is really designed to be around the block. As you can see in this picture, this is the Fremont Shop road test route. It is 2.1 miles long. It is on roads that are generally industrial. We don't encounter a lot of traffic on those roads. We can get up to good speed on those roads. Be safe when you're driving customer cars. Don't break laws egregiously. I can't tell you to go exceed the speed limit, but generally we want to get up to a speed where we can identify highway speed related concerns for customer vehicles, especially if they're experiencing brake vibrations only when leaving off ramps and things like that. You can figure that kind of stuff out necessarily, or you can figure stuff like that out without getting on the freeway, but still getting up to the speed you need to get up to. If you can, also try to find some rougher road to go over, whether it be a joint for an overpass or railroad tracks or something like that. It'll help you identify suspension noises and rattles as well. Like I said earlier, avoid high density traffic areas. It really sucks to get into situations where you are stuck in traffic during the busy mornings where you have to get through a lot of these inspections efficiently. The difference between a 3-minute test drive, which this route takes, and a 12-minute test drive really kills our efficiency first thing in the morning doing these inspections. You want to listen for things, make sure you don't have the radio on, make sure you have the windows up, smell if there's a oil leaking onto the exhaust, coolant smells, things like that. Feel any vibrations in the tires or in the suspension, brakes, all that kind of stuff. That's what the road test is for. We need to make sure we do that. Once you get into the bay and before you put the vehicle on the lift, there are additional items here that you can do. First is air filters. It says here that we check engine and cabin air filter, but we really don't necessarily even always check the engine air filter. This is a situation where if we can do it without tools, we will visually inspect the engine air filter. If we cannot do it without tools, like you need to undo bolts on the airbox, we do not inspect the air filters because that is, frankly, excessive amount of time that we do not have to perform these inspections. In those situations, we will ask customers for service history, which we have on Carfax. You can ask your service advisor to review Carfax records as well. We want to see when the air filter was last changed, and we always recommend doing engine and cabin air filters together. We also don't go digging around in glove boxes for cabin air filters. If it is inaccessible to check the engine air filter, we simply just say, we did not inspect, but check with your service history to determine whether this is needed or not. Then we'll check the engine compartment. Check drive belts, AC belts, that kind of thing. Hoses, how are the coolant hoses looking, power steering hoses, any leaks that you can see visibly. Any wiring issues, any harness issues, any evidence of rodents, any evidence of damage. And we test the battery. You will be provided with a battery tester when you start with the company, and we use those to test cold cranking amperage output to estimate the remaining life of the battery, and we'll also check the date sticker to verify whether our test was accurate or not. It's a brand new battery. You want to be careful saying, oh, I need to replace it immediately. Double check it first. Make sure you look for that date sticker. Next, we'll check engine oil condition and level and check for leaks. You're doing this from the top of the engine at first. Remember, the vehicle's not on the lift yet, so this is basically going to be dipstick. If it doesn't have a dipstick and the vehicle isn't up to temperature, we don't need to wait forever for the vehicle to verify oil level for us. We may never get to know that in this situation, but if the vehicle is not telling us that it's low on oil, that customer isn't complaining about it, you can assume that the light is not on. That's our assumption in that situation, and you will be able to check for oil leaks all over the vehicle and then potentially condition as well in that process. In this case, you're just checking for things like valve cover gaskets, timing cover issues, leaks coming from the top of the engine. Recommendations on your oil leak situation. We don't want to over-recommend repairs for leaks in general. There are different vocabulary terms we can use in this situation. So you have oil seepage, which is a light staining around the gasket sealing surface. You have oil leak, which is actual oil coming out from the sealing surface, and you can see it maybe running down the engine block or whatever it may be. And then we have oil drips, which is where it's dripping onto an engine cover, onto a lower component of the engine, something like that, where you can actually see beads of oil. In that case, we do want to mark it as red. Leak, we want to mark as yellow. Seepage, you can leave as green. For engine compartment items, belts cracking, hoses swelling, hoses leaking, wiring chewed up, things like that, use your best judgment. A belt cracking really badly and dry rotted and things like that is going to be red. Coolant hoses that are dried out and leaking, or the hose clamp really digging in to a swollen hose, is all red. But if a hose is just starting to show some crystallized coolant around it, if a belt has one or two little cracks in it, that's going to be yellow. A battery testing that it needs to be charged, but its amperage output is okay, is not a sign to replace the battery. We could charge it, especially if a customer is going to be leaving a vehicle with us for other services and then test it again later. But that isn't one where we're going to overdo it on recommending batteries. With air filters, you just want to make sure if it is dirty and visibly dirty, obviously we're taking a picture of it, it's showing up in our recommendations. You can have yellow and red, don't overdo it again. If it's obviously visibly dirty, mark it as red because the customer should change their air filters. Okay, moving on. Cooling system components. Again, this is from the top of the engine. So you're mostly looking at the reservoir, you're looking at the top of the radiator, you're looking at the expansion tank, you're looking at anything else you can see from the top. So water pump, things like that, thermostat, whatever you can see from the top of the engine. It varies by car, obviously. If there are visible leaks, if low coolant is there, if the coolant color looks wrong, all that stuff is stuff to note. With red, yellow, green rankings for this, it's a little easier. Cooling system stuff is generally very reliability sensitive. There isn't too much that's going to show up as a yellow cooling system item unless it's that the coolant is slightly low, but there's no visible coolant leaks. That's generally going to be yellow. We do see that a lot because a lot of these vehicles have 60,000 miles. They've never done a coolant service and it's just evaporated a little bit over time. That happens. That'll just be yellow, but pretty much everything else for that will show up as red. Transmission and drivetrain components. So this is going to include your axles, your transmission pan, your transmission coolers, transmission fluid if there is a dipstick, and what else? The drive shaft if it's rear-wheel drive, the rear diff, the front diff, all that kind of stuff would be included in here. Again, there can be seepage from differential covers. That's not going to be a red item, but if it's dripping, again, the seepage, leaking, and dripping is going to apply here in terms of your different vocabulary. With both differentials and transmissions, drive shafts can have greasing issues, wobble issues, vibration issues. That's generally going to show up as yellow, though it is typically a main customer concern. Axle boots is another tricky one. If it's slung out all the grease and it's a super big mess under there, we know that that universal joint is going to be not long for this world. We can get that as red. If it's a newly cracked boot and all the grease is out of it yet, maybe it's a yellow, but I'll leave that up to your judgment for the most part here. And with fluid, again, if it smells burnt, if it's dark in color, things like that, we want to recommend transmission service. Power steering. Keep in mind, some vehicles now have electric power steering systems, but they do still have fluid. You will get to check all the different components of your power steering system regardless. Is there leaking boots or connections on the rack? Is the power steering pump okay? How are the lines? How's the reservoir? All that stuff. Again, think about seep, leak, drip. Think about sweating hoses for power steering. Sweating is an acceptable term as well for hoses, that have a shine to them, but they're not necessarily actively losing any fluid. That'll be yellow, but not an immediate concern. Engine compartment also, while the vehicle's on the ground, you'll want to check things like brake fluid, which we'll get to in this next slide as well when we talk about on the lift items, but brake fluid test, and other items like that where it's obviously accessible before you get the vehicle up in the air. Okay, now the vehicle is on the lift. So now we get to do some of these items again. We're checking for oil leaks. So keep in mind the same vocabulary, cooling system, same vocabulary again, power steering, same vocabulary again. You get into brakes here. So I already mentioned brake fluid. Make sure you're testing that with your brake fluid tester. This is a situation where a brake fluid test has two components to it. It is the visual condition of the fluid and the tested condition of the fluid. If a fluid is dirty but tests with a low water content, we will still recommend a brake fluid flush. If a brake fluid looks clean but has a high water content, we will also recommend a brake fluid flush. Keep that in mind. We will measure brake pads. And so this is one where a customer will always ask, how are my brakes doing? And I know this from my own experience with my truck. Like I mentioned, I towed a lot. I never changed brakes on that thing the whole time I owned it. And I felt that was insane. And I always wanted to know how much brake life I had left. And to prove we checked, the manager and advisor needs to be equipped with the percentage life or a millimeter measurement of your brake pads. So if you say percentage, keep in mind like 10 to 12 to 15 generally is our full brake pad measurement. Less than that, you're going to start estimating percentages. Customers understand percentages better than millimeters in this situation, obviously, but scientifically and for our purposes, millimeters makes more sense to put in there, but you could put both. That's really the best situation here. We do estimate remaining brake pad life on every car, every inspection. Drums are an exception to this, obviously. If a vehicle has drums, you can't do that without tearing off the drums, and we don't do that. So don't worry about that. You can see heat spots. You can experience warping when you're doing your test drive as well. Make sure lines are looking good. Make sure they're not leaking. Make sure calipers aren't leaking. Make sure that the lines aren't super twisted up. That's all great stuff also to include in our inspections, because sometimes we find calipers that are seized up or broken or leaking, things like that. Suspension. You're going to get into all your control arm bushings, struts, sway bar end links, rear end bushings, and I'm sure I'm missing stuff. Depending on the car, there's obviously a lot more going in here. Ball joints, things like that. With grease boots in general, if a grease boot is split, that isn't the end of the world. That's not a game changer. But if suspension is loose or there is a notable tear or break item in a bushing, that's a cause for concern. Ball joints that are blown out are loose. They're not just leaking grease. With control arm bushings, we see a lot of this in the Bay Area. People have a lot of highway miles, potholes, a lot of wear and tear on front lower control arms. We want to be careful to not over-recommend these. A little bit of surface cracking on a 90,000 mile car isn't the end of the world. As soon as you get into a really big tear or really loose feeling steering. And then when you get the car up in the air, you put a pry bar under there and you can bend the whole control arm out from the subframe. That's situations where it's red. Immediately you need to fix this because your safety is being heavily compromised if you do not repair your control arms. It ends up being an expensive service for people. So it does end up, removing some people from their vehicles when we tell them they need a $3,000 to $5,000 control arm replacement in some cases. When you're recommending suspension components, it can be helpful because you're under the car and you can see exactly how everything is arranged in the suspension geometry of the car. You can potentially explain to your manager if an alignment would be needed for certain smaller, obscure control arms on like European vehicles and things like that. Last one is tires. We measure tire tread. That's a BAR California requirement that you put tire tread measurement into your inspection reports. So we want something 30 seconds on our tire tread. Estimate remaining life for customers. We do also have torque wheels and adjust tire pressure to factory specs in the confidence inspection. We also have this in the quality control process, which we'll get into later, but you can note these things here before you get to the confidence or before you get to the quality control as well. Lastly, you'll go to the computer, and there are a couple other things you got to note here. Service history notes. If you go through past history on a vehicle, just briefly scroll through it, see if there's anything that stands out. You've just looked at this car. You know what we've replaced generally from looking at it. Go into the system, make sure that what you see in there doesn't contradict or open us up to warranty issues for stuff that you're recommending on this service. And lastly, miscellaneous other items. There's going to be other stuff that comes up on cars that isn't captured in this category. And as you come across those things, put it into miscellaneous. This is something that I didn't write on these slides, but is very, very important. You are going to perform these inspections, take photos, and write in notes. The notes that you write in need to be observed conditions of the vehicle, whether you felt it, smelled it, saw it, whatever it is. You will write down the observed condition. Front lower control arm bushings visibly cracked, for example. Noted loose steering during test drive to go with it. That'd be great for arming a manager to sell that service. That's not all I need from you. You also need to put in the recommended repair. So it may seem obvious that what we're saying is replace lower control arms, but it may not be. And if you do not write it down, that assumption being made in the communication between yourself and the manager has the potential to break down. You are the professional, and we rely on you to recommend what is all included in the repair. If you need to look at service procedures, that is on you to do so. The manager can double check and should double check to make sure that special tools and additional parts may or may not be needed, but you are the first line of defense on this. You are the professional that is looking at the car, and we depend on you to go through service information and look at the vehicle to determine how something should be repaired, what is needed to perform that repair. Especially if you have prior experience, this is an excellent place to flex it. You need to be able to say, in this case, on a Toyota Sienna lower control arm job, book time is 12 hours, but I can actually get it done in 3 because I have the way around it to finagle the control arm out of the front subframe. That is a great piece of value for the manager, and we need to act accordingly for that. Things where I have personally found it is the most helpful, where I end up opening the door as the manager and asking the technician questions about a service before I get through the estimation, is things like spark plugs. You typically, on a Honda V6, for example, need a plenum gasket when you're replacing spark plugs. But on other V6 transverse mounted V6s, you do not need a plenum gasket because you don't have to pull the intake manifold. It varies by car. It can be very helpful to the manager if you put in there, replace spark plugs at this mileage. I recommend replacing spark plugs at 120,000 miles on this car. On this car, you don't need a plenum gasket. On this car, you do need a plenum gasket. If you make a habit of including parts required on vehicles, the manager can trust you a lot more, estimate faster, and if you're using just your knowledge and you're not taking a ton of extra time to get that information in there, which I believe is possible for you, then you're being extremely helpful, and we are so grateful for it as the managers that you are flexing your ability to fix cars and telling us exactly what this car is going to take to fix it. From there, we can estimate it and give you everything you need to perform a smooth repair process. We'll give you all the extra parts you need. We'll give you all the time you need if you tell us what you need. This is both hours and extra parts. There's maybe you recommend to replace this part. Great. You recommend to replace a water pump. You can do the timing belt at the same time, for example. That's a great one. All those kind of things are super, super, super helpful. If you need additional time to diagnose things, we would ask that you put in how much time you would like to have. If it's an oil leak situation, you're under the car, you can see the magnitude of the leak. We may not be able to figure out exactly where it's leaking from right away because oil is everywhere. We typically want to do a top-down approach where we identify the highest point that the vehicle is leaking oil from and then clean everything else to make sure there are no other leaks. If we can't identify it at all, then you're just going to start with a cleaning. If you say you need half an hour and 3 cans of brake clean, that is excellent for us to be able to go and quote, estimate that to the customer and sell it. That is what that is for. I think that's all I want to say about notes. That is extremely helpful stuff. We want to put in there a lot of stuff to educate both our customers and our advisors to make sure that we are estimating and selling complete repair procedures. We rely on you guys, the technicians, to professionally complete that process. And because of it, we are so much better off when you go to perform the repair. So please have our partnership in that process. I want to talk about the quality control process. I'm kind of sticking this into this training because it is also on every single repair order that we do. The quality control process exists to avoid comebacks as much as possible. I have personally experienced almost all of these situations where a customer takes their keys, they've paid me, they're happy, they're leaving, and then they come right back in the shop afterwards. And it's not to thank me again. It's usually for, hey, what's this? Hey, this isn't done right. All those kind of things immediately detract from our service, and we want to avoid them as much as possible. We want people to leave with confidence, and we want to hand them their keys with confidence as well. This is how we achieve it, by going through this quality control process. Especially when we are testing wiper blades and they are streaky like crazy, or the car's been in the shop for a while and it's collected a lot of dust on the windshield, we need to clean the glass. Absolutely clean the glass, because a customer will really appreciate all of that extra visibility that they get from coming to our shop. Did we reset service reminders? Are there multiple service reminders we need to reset? Keep that in mind when you're going through any maintenance procedures on vehicles. Did we wipe off all the handprints? Are they on the ceiling? Are they on the steering wheel? Are they on the seat? Are they on the seat belt? Are they on the center console? Are they on the fender? Are they on the hood? Make sure you wipe all that off. Did we install an oil service reminder sticker in the windshield? I've heard of a really cool tactic that I will float out here for you. This isn't a mandatory thing that we do, but I enjoy it. If a customer has an oil change sticker from a different shop in their windshield, consider replacing it with ours with the same information on it. What that accomplishes is reminding them that we are the last shop that that car has been to. Don't throw away the window sticker that they had on there before. We need to give it to the service manager so we can give it back to the customer to show we did not tamper with their maintenance interval. We just wanted them to have a reminder of us going through the shop. And of course, if we did the oil change, put our own sticker up there. We need to make sure that those stickers are professionally written also. We want to have a date on there, so you'll have a month, a date, and a year. The year should be fully spelled out as 20, whatever year it is. I'll probably update this before 2100. And we need to have a comma in the thousands point for the mileage. And we need to have, if it's a single digit month, we will put a 0 before that month number. So if it's April, it's 04. It's not just 4. If we took the engine cover off, put it back on. If we have other hardware waiting around outside of the vehicle, make sure it's back on the vehicle. If we took off the wheels, or if it is easy to access the lug nuts, we will torque the wheels. If there's a hubcap on there, if there's wheel lug nut caps on there, don't worry about it. If it's very hard to get to wheel torque and we did not touch it, don't worry about it. This is supposed to be an efficient process. Did we set tire pressure? This one we have to do on every car because it's usually easy to set tire pressure. Did we top up fluids? We do this as part of our service. So washer fluid especially, coolant, we will charge for a top up if they're doing other services. Otherwise, we will not top it up. Oil, same way. Charge for it. Power steering, charge for it. Brake fluid, charge for it. All that kind of stuff. But washer fluid for sure, and other fluids if they are performing additional services with us. Did we test drive the car? This only applies if we performed a service that requires a test drive, and this one should be, again, around the block, super quick. Just make sure nothing has been disrupted or is super, super wrong from our repair. Did we verify our repair? Make sure that the thing that they brought the car in for has actually been fixed and everything they're paying us to fix has actually been fixed. Publish notes about the repair. So if there's anything that happened in the repair that we need to document, both for our own sake and for the customer's sake, we will write that into the notes that you have in TechApp. And then lastly, you're going to document the mileage out. This helps save us time walking back and forth to a closed out RO to make sure that we have the mileage out correct. Just take a picture of the mileage or write it down so that we can see what the mileage out is without having to go out to the car. On that note, going back up a couple here to wheel torque and tire pressure, if we do torque the wheels, put the foot-pounds on there that you torque the wheels to. If we didn't, make sure you note that we did not. For tire pressure, make sure you note what PSI the tires are at. That's how we leave our customers with confidence through the quality control process. Okay, the takeaways from this training. The confidence inspection is the foundation of our process. Everything I just went through here is exactly what we need to do to deliver our best service to our customers. This builds trust and value with our customers so that we can educate them and they will continue to come back to us to perform repairs and maintenance on their cars. Yes, it's a selling tool. I'm not going to hide that, but we don't oversell. We don't push people into red repairs that aren't truly red repairs. We have to have rigorous honesty and genuine efforts to keep our customers safe, but we don't overdo it for the sake of money. That is a very key point here. We want to keep a customer for a long time by building trust with them and helping them reduce overall ownership costs of their car by not buying a new one every time this one gets a little bit too expensive to maintain. We want them to be able to keep their cars, build memories, enjoy them, have a reliable experience with their car, and drive with confidence. We have customers with cars with 500,000 miles on them that we see every 6 months and do basic repairs on, and they just keep them going. It's awesome to see. This one is very important, and I know it sounds heavy here, but I'll just say it anyways. Data and photos beat hearsay every time, both in court and in commerce. We have never lost any sort of legal situation that we've been in because we rigorously document on our repair orders. We want to write things down. We want to take pictures. We don't want to rely on our memory. Do more than you think you need to do. Over-document, because if you do, you will thank yourself later as opposed to regretting under-documenting. That is a critical component both in legal situations, which do come up, unfortunately. This is an industry that people love to hate and love to sue, but it also helps in commerce. Just in general situations, we want to be able to sell and we want to be able to leave customers with confidence in us. They're going to have that through more documentation rather than less. And lastly, the quality control process is the best defense we have against the comeback. So just remember that as you are going through these mandatory processes on every car that comes through Driven Auto Care, we do these confidence inspections and we do these quality control processes to inspire confidence in ourselves and in our customers and to stay in business delivering excellent service on these vehicles. So, with all that said, thank you for watching this training. Go do some confidence inspections and quality control and stay driven.